Hello and welcome to the Natural Balance Hoof Care Corner. We've had a lot of requests from people who have been watching the show, people who do their own horses, farriers who have called in and have inquired about different tools that they see on the program. And so we decided that we would take the time to go over some of the things, at least the things that I find are important to me. And I've certainly had an opportunity over the last 40 years to sort out what is good and what is bad. And everybody's going to have to make their decisions, but the thing that seems to be on the minds of most people is they want to make an investment in a tool, but they don't want to have to make 3 different investments in order to get the right tool. So I thought I'd just discuss some of the things that have been real important to me and how I've evolved to the tools that I've used to this day. You see all of the tools that we have here today are not brand new. They ride out of my truck, so they look like they've been used, and they certainly have been. The pull-offs are very much like nippers. They have a deeper bell in them right here, a flat surface across here, and I find those to work the best. There are some out there that have more of a rounded jaw on them, and I don't have any problems with that. I think it's just your own personal preference. But the fact is, the sharper the blade right here means that when you have a nail that's just popped up, you can reach down and pull that nail if you have a nice sharp edge right here. One of the things that I've done to modify this slightly is to make a clean out tool for this here. This is a 2-fisted hoof pick, and sometimes with that dirt packed in the bottom of the foot, it's nice to have this here, simply because you can clean around the edge of the shoe like so that when you do decide to get ready to put your pull-offs under, there'll be a clean space there. The dirt gets packed in the bottoms of these feet. That's a good thing, and but it's not very handy when you get ready to pull that shoe off. So those are just little things that you can do. I don't know of anybody that's making these with a hook on the end of them, but if you find somebody that's good in the forge, they can sure pound the end of this out to make a hoof pick out of it. The next part of the sequence is to, of course, finish cleaning the foot out. And if you look at this knife, and I'm going to spend just a bit of time on this here, you'll notice this knife especially has a hoof pick built on the back of it. Most knives that I've used over the years, I spend a lot of time just merely cleaning the foot out with the back side because I don't want to ruin this sharp edge. So it's a matter of cleaning the foot with this side, and if you get to a stubborn spot, invariably you'll turn around and it's usually a rock or something, then you end up dulling the blade. So in order to preserve the life of the blade, if you have a good knife, then you'll want to have something on the back. This knife is made by Jim Hurlburt and J.H. Forge, and so it's a very nice design. There's other things about it that are equally important. One of the things is the pitch. The design of this bottom blade right here. This is your cutting surface here, and if you look at the forces that it takes to actually manipulate this knife through the foot, you're going to be cleaning some of the sole area away, and if you have your elbow and knife in this position right here, ergonomically it's a more efficient position. Where if you have a knife that's straighter, such as this one here, and there's certainly nothing wrong with this, you have to pitch your hand, lay your hand flat out in order to get it to that same position. And if you hold that knife in that position for a period of time, you get a little bit of strain right here, and you get a little strain right here in your elbow. And if you're having to force that knife, then it would be nice to be able to set that knife up just a little bit straighter and get the same, be able to deliver more force through there. Same thing is true coming back on this other side. You'd have to lay your hand clear down on that side, where otherwise it's up in this more efficient position. So between the hook on the back to help clean the foot out in these troubled areas along the wall and the sole, it's very handy because you'll be able to clean the rocks out, the sand and whatnot, so when you do get ready to rasp those areas, you're not going to be dulling your rasp. Very important to consider those things. I mean, a sharp knife is really important, and the more you have to use it for cleaning, the less likely you are to have a nice sharp surface there. So that's one of the most important tools in my entourage here. The other type of knife that I have is a loop knife, and I use it for cleaning the central sulcus, sometimes this corner back here and both of these heels next to the frog. And the reason why I use this knife in this position is because it cuts very cleanly through here, and allows me to use my rasp and my nippers very efficiently, clear to the very end of the heel when I am preparing the horse's foot. So the knives are really a key tool. The next tool that is very important to me, and is probably one of the most expensive ones, even though it's the cheapest in the long run, and that's a good pair of nippers. And I've sorted out over the years. I used to think that you had to have a big pair of nippers to work on draft horses, and I found that I just end up having to work much harder. I find that this narrow blade, this 14-inch track nipper, works very good for draft horses. You take more cuts, but those cuts are much easier to compress the nippers as you cut through a very difficult and tough foot. So I'm going to suggest that you, if you're going to make an investment in a pair of nippers, that you get a very good quality kind. The rasps are the next thing. They're probably the tool that you spend the more money on, simply because you use them up. You rasp for a while, so and practically all brands nowadays are good. Some work a little smoother than others, and some are just a little sharper for in the initial stages, but all in all, they're all pretty good rasps. And the handle is the most important thing, in that if you don't have a handle on there, you have a sharp tine that if you try to push that rasp through without the handle, you're going to end up hurting your hand. The next item I'm going to talk about is my apron, and there's a good reason why I have this apron, and I've had it made specifically for this, for horseshoeing. You'll notice this belt doesn't go straight across like most aprons. It's belled, and it fits in a fashion like this, and it isn't because of my aging process and whatnot, but it's made so that when I bend over, the waist will expand. One of the things I found years ago was that if I had my apron too tight, I bent over. It seemed to give me some comfort at that moment, but if my back was tired at the end of the day and I went to come up, that belt would release and my muscles would go into a spasm. I think because of that, this particular belt design is very important. I also have a pad on the back. This is done for two purposes. One is for cushioning, but most importantly, it's for warmth, to keep the part of my back that is used the most right here, to keep it warm. So if my shirt tail happens to be out, I'm not going to get a cold draft and cause some sort of muscle contracture. Another thing I like about this apron is the pocket for the knife. It's got a wide opening at the top. It always stays open so that you can reach down. You can always find that pocket, but most importantly, it's got a clean out in the bottom, something that I've never seen on any other apron. So all the debris and stuff that falls down through here over the weeks of work, then you have an opportunity to clean it out simply by pulling the snap open, dumping it out, and then re-snapping it like that. So it's a handy little device. Otherwise, your pocket fills up, your knife doesn't go all the way in, and it's just one of those little things that makes such a big difference when you talk about the tools. Apron is light, it's made of a special material, has good protective leather on it. I think that's real important because it will turn a nail when it needs to. Okay, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk about some different shoe sizes and types and pads and things like that in our next show. So until then, hello again, and welcome to the Natural Balance Hoof Care Corner. Today we're going to talk about shoe designs, hoof pads, and the likes of that. I want to start out by bringing something out that we all see with every shoe that's taken off the hoof, especially the front shoes. We see that the toe is always worn, and this has been basically the catalyst for the design of the Natural Balance shoe. Basically trying to understand what's going on with the foot. And we talked about this in our earlier sessions about how this the horse fulcruming over his foot causes this shoe wear. It's had an impact on all of the shoe manufacturing, as most manufacturers are finding needs and a demand in the industry for giving some kind of relief to the shoe. And if you see, this is the shoe that's been worn for 6 or 8 weeks, and it's worn very specifically in a rolled fashion. Several years ago, this is basically the shoe that we had. It was one very similar to this, and if you'll look at it, it actually has the shape of a hind shoe, and this is basically what you see here. But even to this day, we still have a lot of shoes manufactured that have this basic hind shoe configuration. It's left up to the farrier to modify this shoe to fit a front foot. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. And unfortunately, that's the reason why a lot of horses' feet become kind of run forward and not kept back underneath of the coffin bone as it should be. So fortunately, most of the manufacturers are making front and hind patterns now, which has been a huge help to the farriers in the industry. And you see these are two shoes, both front shoes, that are shaped differently than the one I was just showing you. If you look at this design, this is what we used to have. This is what we still have in many cases. You buy these, and consequently, this would be a nice hind shoe. If you bought this, you had to use it for a front shoe, you'd have a lot of changing to make in order to make it look like this. Fortunately, this has been a huge step forward in the industry. One of the other things that's been real helpful is simply change from a flat shoe design where the breakover occurs right out here at this edge. The horse would have to wear this shoe back in order for it to have the similar characteristics as this shoe right here. You see, part of this is built into this shoe already, not only in the front, but it's built around the sides as well, so that as this horse moves around his foot, and particularly over the front, it's a little easier for them to break over in that direction. Turn it sideways here, where the flat shoe without any modifications takes a bit more effort to get over. So eventually this shoe would be worn like this one here, but it takes a while for that to happen. So the biomechanics of the horse are enhanced by just allowing them to move around their foot just a little bit better. Now the movement on a hind shoe is slightly different. This is a hind shoe. This is a hind shoe of a different manufacturer. This is a hind shoe. This is perfectly flat all the way out to the outside edge, and there's very little to no opportunity for that horse to get freedom over that foot. If the ground is soft, then the ground will yield beneath the foot. This shoe has a little better advantage in that the breakover point is on this inside edge right there. Good performance shoe. This is the natural balance. This is what we use for natural balance application. You'll see that it's rolled on the toe a little bit, and this is the leading edge. This is the highest part of this foot. So it, at the same time, makes it easy for the horse to move around his foot. So those are just little things that make a big difference to the horses that we use for performance and athletic events. The natural balance shoes have already got the worn area built into them, and there's obviously, as we've talked before, special guidelines on how to place this shoe relative to the bony column, which is really helpful. And when it really boils down to it, that's what the horse is trying to do. Simply wear the front of his foot to the point on the bottom that is most comfortable for him and most efficient biomechanically. We have aluminum shoes, natural balance shoes, fronts, natural balance steel shoes. We've just recently helped develop a slider for a lot of the high-level performance horses, both rope horses, reining horses, working cow horses, and we have 3 different designs. Seems as though these horses are always having hock problems, stifle problems, sore backs, and the likes of that, which definitely influences their performance and their value as far as that goes. So we have some guidelines on how to prepare the foot, how to place the shoes, which have been really helpful in getting these horses to a sounder and more efficient performance level. So we have our regular slider, general purpose slider here for a lot of rope horses and beginning reining horses. And we have a regular slider, which is 1 inch wide. You'll notice that this has a slight taper to the front of it that's built right into it. The nail holes are set quite a ways to the front so that the shoe is fitted to the well back under the foot, which seems to enhance their movement forward, gives them a bit longer stride, also helps them slide a little better. This gate through the center offers no resistance whatsoever, yet it still conforms well to the outer perimeter of the foot. And it virtually, in most cases, just sets right on the foot and is nailed down with very little alterations. So you have a selection of shoes in which to choose from for barrel horses, rope horses, and the likes of that. So this is what we've had in the past. We've had sliders that have been doing very well. Basically, this is a 1 inch wide, or an inch and a 1 inch wide, slightly tapered slider. This one has slightly tapered to it, but as you can see, the gate through the middle is not straight, and for those who are really in high competition, it's nice to have this gate straight through there. This has been a great shoe. All of these have been really great. We're just continually looking for a better way to allow the horses a bit more freedom, keep them sounder, yet still get that high level of performance. I'm going to talk a little bit about pads, and we've used them for a lot of different things over the years, sometimes just covering up a sore spot on the bottom, or if the foot is very tender, just a simple thin pad is real helpful. We use wedge pads when the angle of the foot needs to be elevated some. There's a lot of controversy about whether that's good or bad. The thing that we have realized is that if you trim the heels properly to the sole level, you can put a wedge pad on to improve that angle, get it back to where it should be without having any problems. We've taken this step one step farther in developing a pad with a frog that will meet the ground. If you're tuned into some of our earlier discussions and anatomy portions of this program, you'll find that the frog, how it engages the ground from a heel first landing, is very, very important. It helps position the navicular bone in the coffin joint properly. This pad comes in a flat as well as a wedge pad, depending on whether the horse needs to be elevated or not. Again, the hoof preparation is very important. The primary goal in this pad is to maintain good frog contact even though the shoe is on the horse. And if you have a horse with contracted heels, navicular syndrome, the frog is got bad thrush where it's not functional at all, then this pad with a bit of impression material in there becomes very, very helpful, and it sure has got a lot of the horses around their minor and major problems. It's designed to fit behind the shoe so that as this foot is approaching the ground, this part will contact first, and it will help to arrange the internal structure of the foot from a biomechanical standpoint. Again, all of these things are just simple tools that if horses are having minor or major problems, we have the tools now and to deal with them. So if you have any questions, boy, we're always there to answer them for you, and this whole session is based on the questions that have been asked in the past, and I hope that we've been able to answer some of those questions for you. If we haven't, just let us know. We'll be glad to send you in the right direction if we don't have the answers, and I think that's really what's important. We don't have all the answers, but we certainly have resources in which to find out some things that are important to you. Thank you very much. Welcome again to the Natural Balance Hoof Care Corner. Today we're going to go around the horse a little bit and show you some positioning things that are important for you as well as the horse, and positioning yourself in and around the horse, how to ask them to pick up their legs and feet in a safe and prudent way, as well as to make it comfortable for the horse as well as for you working on the horse. Best approach, rather than to approach them from the front, I usually will approach them at the withers. And if you look at horses in the pasture, they groom each other, and this is a friendly position for each of them. So I usually find myself best to approach them from this particular point of view. It leaves you good access to the front leg, if that's the leg that you choose to pick up first. And I always like to let them know that I'm going to be picking up the leg, and if you use the same approach all the time, you'll find that they'll get ready for you and they'll be prepared. So I run my hand down their leg on the outside edge, and obviously this guy has had his feet picked up a lot. Run my hand down the outside, and when I reach around the inside, in most horses will automatically pick up their leg. If they're reluctant to pick up the leg, I usually will place my finger right inside and underneath of the flexor tendon, and then just squeeze with my fingernail or the tip of my finger just a little bit, just to help give them a little encouragement to get that foot picked up. Mind you, this is a pretty small horse, and he's going to be a little difficult to get under. So I usually will clean the foot roughly before I get under there. And again, because he's small, I have to get down very low underneath of him. I don't want to put him into a situation where I'm going to bend his leg out here You can see him already objecting. His head's starting to move. He's moving his hind legs. He's trying to find a position closer to me so that I'm not twisting his leg. And try to be aware of those things, because this is how a lot of those problems start. So when that happens, I push my body back underneath. Now you notice I'm in somewhat of a contortion position here, which is uncomfortable for me. But it's more important that you make the horse comfortable, simply because they're going to stand a lot better for the duration of time. I find it's very good to take short spurts, take short sessions while you're underneath of them. If you're underneath with them, with their leg between your knees, it's important to get under there, do the job that you set out to do, clean the foot one session, maybe put the foot down. If you're going to exfoliate it, then make that be your next session. If you've done a lot of this kind of work, those things are going to come quite quickly and you're not going to spend a lot of time there. But if you're just beginning, then you'll want to be considerate of the horse's cramped position, because in the long run, you're going to suffer for it. So making the horse comfortable is very, very important. I'll move to the hind leg now and show you what we do there. Same thing is true. My preference is not to stand this distance away. I know a lot of people do that, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. My preference is to stay close to the horse. If you look at the way my legs are positioned relative to theirs, you'll find that if this horse did decide to kick me, he would kick back here and my leg would bend and I would be out of the way. I always maintain body contact, never lose contact with the horse, but I stay close to him because it can't really hurt you very hard if you have that type of horse. Mind you, there aren't many of them that do that, but nevertheless, the same approach. I run my hand down the outside of the leg and then roll it around, ask the horse, and I try to hold that leg in this position just as he's picked it up. I'll reach my hand around and I'll grab that foot. Again, I'm staying close to the horse. So get in a position where you're not going to be thrown off, and then hold that foot right there, and then as best you can pull the leg straight back. Horses don't like to have the foot pulled out here. You see how he's objecting to that? He's a very gentle horse, but it's hard on their hips right up here on top. When you pull that leg out like that and you walk around with it, you see how he's resisting, because he's actually pretty healthy up there, but there's a lot of older horses that will just give you a lot of static when you start to pull that leg around. So be very conscious of this. This is very important for young horses, old horses, and especially babies the first few times. Run your hand down the foot. Now mind you, he's very comfortable, but to where he picks that foot up, that's where you want to hold it. Right there for a second. Get yourself in a position where you can support them, and then just pull that foot back, set underneath of them, and you can move that foot back quite a ways. If they're reluctant, you'll have to be up here, but eventually they'll let you pull that foot back just a little bit farther. Get you in this cleaning position. Again, keep your toes pointed inward and let your knees come together, and there you are. I'm going to show you an alternative to getting underneath of a horse, particularly small ones like this, and or older horses that have stiff joints and they're just basically uncomfortable all over. There's this stand right here has become very, very helpful to me, especially. And I used to get in and around a lot of horses, but as I get a little older and don't move quite as freely, I can't get under these guys quite as well. Certainly don't want to jeopardize their comfort and get into a storm with them, because that's how a lot of these bad shoeing problems get started. It's just not recognizing when these guys need to have some relief. So a stand like this, particularly this one, I really like because it's got a flat base right here. A lot of the stands, like this one right here, which has been a pretty good tool for a lot of people over the years, you see how it's got a crown to it. But when you put your foot up on that, it kind of throws your knee out a little bit. This one, on the other hand, is perfectly flat. It's like standing on a floor, which is what I really like. And I can get both feet on this quite nicely and not have my knees being bent out, which is very nice. And as far as working on the front foot, you can put that stand right there, and you can put your knee right up against it like that, and it's comfortable, it's cushy right there, and you can do most of your work. Brace yourself out here if you like, and do most of the work in a position that's more comfortable for you and certainly a lot more comfortable for the horse. This is used exactly the same way on the hind foot. You may want to adjust it just a little bit differently for each and every horse. Again, let him pick his foot up, let him come back, and you'll be amazed at how they'll do this very comfortably and nicely on their own. Put your knee in behind here, like so, and it holds the foot quite nicely. You can put a little pressure here. This is a very small foot. It kind of wobbles around in there a little bit, but the fact is that you can hold it, and when you get ready to do your rasping, it stays pretty nice and solid. So nipping and rasping, the most important thing is that the horse is comfortable, and that's going to make the job a lot easier for you as well as it is for the horse. So those are two little tools that are very nice to have. Comes with a foot peg, and again, it's adjustable. You take a small horse like this, you probably don't want to put it up too high. When it comes time to finish the foot off in front, it's a matter of just pulling the foot up and let him find a comfortable zone. It's kind of like a stick shift transmission. Find out where that neutral position is. Horse will be comfortable with that. Then you have a nice strong surface here to finish the foot with. Again, it's a matter of making it comfortable for the horse so that it'll be comfortable for you. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you next week.